All right. Well, welcome back to I'm Still Here. I'm Heather. In 1998, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer at the age of 26. It changed everything for me, but I'm still here. And I am so excited, you guys, to have you meet my longtime friend, Lori Lober. Lori has an amazing story, and you guys are going to love it, but I'm going to let her kind of introduce herself. So welcome, Lori. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that I'm still here as well. I mean, that's what this is all about. I mean, we're here to give others hope and let other people who hear the dreaded words, you have cancer, know that it does not necessarily mean a death sentence nowadays. And even for you all those years ago, my metastatic breast cancer journey started in 1998, and I was misdiagnosed and was just told I had fibrocystic breast condition, which is not a precursor to breast cancer. And
Okay.
I was 34 years old then. And,
Mm-hmm.
they said, cut out caffeine. Well, I never drank coffee. I never really drank caffeine. And we just chased it for about 2 years when finally I went to uh, a third surgeon,
Okay.
and he said I can feel the mass. It was on my left breast, in my left breast, and he said I think we need to do a biopsy, and it's probably going to need to come off. I mean, that was kind of it.
Wow.
And this was April of 2000, so a lot's
Okay.
changed since then for the
Yeah.
better. But
Yeah.
I said I'm going to get another opinion before we start lopping anything off. And I'm so glad I did, because had I not spent that week in Houston, Texas, down at MD Anderson Cancer Center and been part of a clinical trial, who knows if I'd still be here. So,
So you're in Kansas City, is that correct?
yeah, Kansas
That
City, Missouri.
area,
Yep.
Missouri. Okay. So Texas was a bit of a. It wasn't just down the road for you to go and do that,
It
but
was a
boy, second
commitment.
opinions can make a big difference, right?
Yes. Oh,
Um,
for sure.
as we get started, what were you doing prior? Like, what was your life like at that stage in life?
Uh, Well, we were busy home builders and raising three sons and helping my mother. She lived with us for a really long time. She's recently passed. But just trying to be good stewards of the world and help, whoever we can help along the way. But, just raising our family and taking care of our new home construction business and uh, loving life, not loving life as much as I do today because of everything
Yeah,
I've been through. But
sure.
boys have been a huge lover of life.
Yeah. What'd you know about cancer? Was it on your radar really?
The only reason it was on my radars was because my younger brother Lance had been misdiagnosed. He was
Okay.
diagnosed with leiomyosarcoma, and it's pretty much a death sentence.
Okay.
And he just kept having surgery after surgery after surgery, and they kept removing it from his abdomen. And no one in Kansas City even told us that there was anything like an MD Anderson Cancer Center. And
Okay.
it wasn't until they said, we just can't do anything else for you, that a family friend, Cheryl, told us about MD Anderson and what a comprehensive cancer center was. And my father, Larry, and my brother, Larry, and Lance and I got down to Houston, Texas. And within about 48 hours, we found out he'd been misdiagnosed that whole time. And he didn't have leiomyosarcoma. He had sarcoma, which is 100% treatable and curable.
Oh
But
wow.
Lance passed about 1 month after my stage 4, my diagnosis in May of 2000.
Oh wow.
Brother. So,
Yeah. So, I'm sorry to hear that. That's so hard to, and especially to have just found out about your own cancer, right? And have it be so. can you tell me a little bit about like what happened when you went to Houston for yourself? As you know, so you knew that you did in fact have cancer at that point, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He did a biopsy and it was positive. And
Okay.
that's when he said, he gave me a jingle and just said, I really want you and John to come down and visit in person. Of course, the whole way down, we're like, oh my God, this is usually not good. And
Yep.
that's when he said, I'm pretty sure that it's just going to need to come off sooner rather than later. And that's when I said, my younger brother is a patient at MD Anderson right now in Texas. And before I do anything, I want to seek a second opinion. So
Okay.
really
So
glad.
they got you in fairly quickly?
Yes, it was
Okay.
crazy. So fast indeed that I spoke with them on a Thursday, the day after we got the message from the surgeon here in Kansas City. And on Friday, I was already speaking to my brother Lance's oncologist at MD Anderson and told him what I had just heard. And he had me come in on Monday morning. And this was Easter weekend of 2000.
Wow.
Not
Some of
even.
the similarities in our story are very similar. Like in that, I mean, same thing. Thursday, Friday, I was in on Monday right before Christmas. Like, thank God for that kind of thing, right?
Yes, yes. And they're so compassionate. I mean, I love everyone who does anything to help others with cancer. And most of them are so big hearted and just glorious, beautiful, wonderful people. But boy, that MD Anderson, if I wouldn't have gone down there, I just don't know that it would have set me up for success, 23 years later. And I'm just so grateful.
Yeah.
To
So tell us what happened when you got down there.
Got down there, started doing the tests. Every time tests came back positive, they scheduled more tests.
Yeah.
Started out with a bone scan and MRIs and PET scans and more biopsies. And then, like I said, everything just kept coming back positive. We were there first thing on a Monday morning, Monday after Easter. And by Friday afternoon, 5 days later, we had an appointment with Dr. Daniel Boozer. And he said, I hate to tell you this, but it's not just breast cancer. And you're really, really lucky you didn't have it taken off because it has metastasized. It's everywhere throughout your lymphatic system. And you have multiple tumors in your liver. So, freak out set in, of course. I mean, little by little, we were kind of starting to expect to hear it, but then when it comes,
it doesn't matter, right? I don't think there's a way to prepare yourself for that.
Nothing like it. It's just same is true when you're expecting, someone you love is in hospice and they're not going to make it, but when they do pass, it still is just so gut wrenching and heart wrenching. And we immediately asked the doctor, what would you do if your wife was hearing this news? And he said, I would get on a clinical trial. And basically what's FDA approved as of April 2000, probably it's not going to offer you much hope because I was what's called HER2 positive. And that is a very aggressive premenopausal type of breast cancer. And so thank goodness they had a clinical trial and I was able to participate in that. And literally we hung around Houston over the weekend. They inserted my port Monday morning and I got my first treatment. And so everything just happened really fast, but I feel like according to God's plan. So.
Yeah. So I think people on my podcast are pretty familiar with HER2. But what was your clinical trial? What was the medicine?
Yeah, so it was Taxotere. I started Taxotere and Herceptin on a clinical trial. And if it wouldn't have been for that, I would have just been, I would have had to go for adriamycin, Cytoxan, and 5-FU. So we did a clinical trial, and then we bounced back and did what was FDA approved, the
Okay.
cytoxin 5-FU. Then each month we would go back down to Houston, and they would do scans. And in let's see, September 10th of 2000, that's when I had radio frequency ablation to my liver.
Okay.
And one of the tumors had completely gone away, and one that started out the size of a quarter had shrunk to the size of a dime. And so they wanted to do another trial with radio frequency ablation being inserted into my liver. So I was never opened up in my abdomen. So I still have a big hole in my abdomen, in my liver, filled with necrosis. Freaks people out on scans when I tell them.
Sure.
But yeah, it was successful. And then we started back on more chemotherapy. I did another regimen of navalbine along with Herceptin. And then I did another clinical trial at Duke Comprehensive Cancer Center. And that was a dendritic stem cell type ordeal where they harvested the cells and then they gave them back to me in a series of immunizations. And so did that at Duke. And so I think just between all of it and then just always having a positive mind, Heather, you know, we all can't be 1,000% positive all the time, but if I can see myself as whole and well on the other side of this journey, if anyone can do it, I can do it. I just know I can. And so I think you have to have that level of belief when you're stage 4 if you're going to make it.
Yeah. Do you remember being freaked out like by the numbers, by the statistics? Like, do you remember thinking yourself through that a little bit?
I remember thinking, this is so grim. I mean, the prognosis is so grim, but I always felt like if anyone could make it happen, I could make it happen. I don't know why. I'm not any more special than anyone else. I'm willing to put in work. I'm willing to do research. I'm willing to learn everything about what it is I'm going through. And if anyone can make it, you know, I was 36 years old. I mean, with 3 little boys at that point in time. And I just knew I was going to throw everything at it. And glad I did.
Yeah. So did you, I mean, I imagine you were on your treatments were kind of like you would get treatment and then you'd wait 3 weeks and you would get other, you know, treatment, something like that. It sounds like you had different changes more often. But
except for the Herceptin, when I started it was an every week infusion.
Okay.
So I had to go.
Did that make you feel? Did you feel okay on it? Yeah. I mean, I did Herceptin too, and it wasn't like hard to tolerate, really.
No.
Okay.
It wasn't until we got into the adriamycin, cytoxin 5-FU, and navalbine that it kicked my butt.
Those will take you. Yeah, I started with adriamycin and Taxotere, so I understand all that. And I don't know what I did with my stem cell, honestly, but what did you do on the days that you weren't doing treatment?
Even on the days I was doing treatment, I always stayed busy. I mean, I did not want people to drop food by. I did not want people to feel sorry for me. I still did everything that I did in my life before cancer. With that being said, I told John, you know, there will be days, you know, usually 2 or 3 days after you get an infusion that you don't feel wonderful. And so I timed those so that I would feel cruddy over the weekend. And there were times when they didn't see much of me on the weekend because I was either in bed or just I needed my alone time. And I just feel like your body heals itself when it's sleeping or when it's at rest. And so it was super, super important for me to rest and recoup after.
Yeah. this is not a question I had written down, but like when you're talking about resting, I think it's also kind of like it's also about settling your mind in a certain sense, right? To not have that constant or to be able to counter it a little bit. Can you talk to that at all? I think we kind of have similar, probably different ways of doing things, but similar thoughts on just kind of really how do we use those thoughts in our heads, or how do we get to a state of being able to truly rest and, then heal?
To this day, it's my biggest obstacle is being able to
Mm-hmm.
turn my head off. I'm just being super
Mm-hmm.
honest with you.
Sure.
I went and saw a psychologist. I don't think she's a psychiatrist. I think she's a psychologist. And she specializes in working with newly diagnosed cancer patients. Her name's Dr. Moira Mulhern. She runs Turning Point. It's a healing center here in Kansas City. I mean, she's so good. She
Yeah.
helped so much. She and I worked together to create a CD. Actually, I don't think it was a CD. I think it was
Yeah.
one of those little audio tapes that you put into a
Yes. Yeah.
recorder. And we worked together, and I did a series of kind of like subliminal,
Yep.
my body is whole and well, I am happy, healthy, and happy,
Yeah.
it just kept going on and on and on. And it was my voice hearing it at night.
Yep.
And so I felt like that was really, really instrumental in trying to calm my mind at night.
Mm-hmm.
And usually after a half hour, 45 minutes, I would get to the point where I could take off the headphones because John was laying there. I would be able
Yeah.
to take the headphones and turn it off and put it down, and
Mm-hmm.
get to
How
sleep.
long did you do that for? Do you know?
At least a year,
Mm-hmm.
every
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. I started out with Bernie Siegel, and I always call him tapes because it was a tape, but that I first started listening to. But then I also worked with I don't even know if it was a psychologist or somebody, as I was heading into my stem cell transplant, to do kind of a visualization type of situation for both at the hospital and after, but the same type of situation in terms of I know that what I'm thinking and how my body's reacting has a lot to do with those thoughts. So
Absolutely. I mean, to this day, if we see ourselves as sick and unhealable, I mean, we're
yeah,
probably sick and unhealable, right?
yeah,
But our bodies can do miraculous things if we
yeah,
believe it all has to start right here.
yeah,
And you have to feel it here, and then you have to just know in your heart of hearts that there's more on the other side. And
yeah.
as dark as it was, my life is so beautiful now.
Hmm.
And I know you've heard me say this, but I wouldn't trade my cancer journey for anything. I think it changed the trajectory of my life in such a powerful way that I have no remorse about it. It's like sometimes when people say, wow, didn't you think, why me? And I never thought that. I was always like, why not me? What would make me any different from Lance or anyone else?
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel I wrote in my first initial letter like we're not saying why me, we're saying try me, and I think I've evolved from that a little bit because I don't really need to be tried, and I whatever, but definitely the why not me. Like this life that we live is some of it is just things happen, right? And how we react to them, it makes all the difference, right? So
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because 1,000%, I really think that I let my immune system become compromised. I know that I was busy taking care of kids and husband and work and things like that. And unfortunately, Lori was the last one
hmm
to receive care and attention. And
hmm
I felt like there were some very stressful things. I mean, John and I, this is both our second marriage, and combining, two families into one is super stressful. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not taking blame for it. I'm just saying, I think I learned that I let myself go. And now I know that I can never do that. We have to put
Yeah.
ourselves first.
I agree. There's so much to that in terms of, I mean, there's like this martyrdom anyway. We're taught as women to take care of other people first, right? That the more you take care of others, the kind of I don't know, the better you are with that. But of course, that's something with my treatment too. I learned so quickly, like I'm not going to be able to take care of Sydney for years if I'm not here taking care of myself, right? And so, I think all of that is just there also to say, like, I think it's worth recognizing the guilt and the shame and the whatever that might come along with some of that, but also we can move forward and we can make choices, as to how we take care of our bodies and what we decide to do, and even just to value ourselves in that way, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We have to know that we're worth it. I
Yes.
mean, and for so long, for 36 years, I took good health for granted.
Yes.
And I'll never do that again
No.
because
No.
it's, and it's not even you are what you eat or you are what you think. It's like you are, the culmination of all these cells. And we have to constantly be telling these cells and ourselves how wonderful every one of our cells are
How
instead of,
good they are.
right, instead of beating ourselves up for
Yeah.
whatever reason. And all of us can beat ourselves up,
Right.
at any given time.
And that doesn't mean being perfect, right? It means like I think again, I guess with that too, where I'm going with that is just I feel like the guilt of not doing things correctly 100% of the time is far worse than just do what you're going to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Sometimes we're
Yes.
not going to be perfect or great, all the time, but give yourself some grace, but then, get back to it, kind of thing. So
It's like having a glass of wine. I mean, I
mhm.
remember, there was a time I talked to Dr. Boozer and I was like, if I want a glass of wine, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because I was on treatment. He's like, if you can tolerate a glass of wine while you're on treatment, I'm going to be shocked, number one. And I remember getting a glass of wine like that weekend after I'd asked that question, and it just felt like fire going down.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, John, you're going to have to finish this glass. But I knew that I couldn't tolerate it then. I knew that it's not what my body wanted or needed. Now, do I beat myself up if I have a glass of wine at night? No, I do not, because
Right.
you're doing your body more harm if you want something enough versus going ahead and just saying, okay, but I'm just going to have a 4 or 5 ounce glass. I'm not going to have 5 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just find a happy medium that you can, justify and then feel good about it instead of feeling bad.
I agree. You've also had some other really significant stress in your life, and I asked beforehand if I could talk a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about Colby? I remember the first time I heard you talk. It was, oh my gosh, just share with us a little bit.
Okay. And you know what? I haven't shared about him for a while. I talk to him every day. It's summary. His birthday was November 21st, and every single day at 11:21, I happen to catch a glimpse of something that says 11:21, and it's just like, thank you, Colby. I got a little bit busy this morning, and maybe I didn't, I wasn't as focused as I would have liked to have been, but I think, okay, this happens every day for a reason. And I know he works his butt off, but my son, best son in the world, of course.
Of course.
He grew up as an only child with me until John and I got married. And John had 2 sons, Anthony and Danny. So we raised the 3 of them together. They were 2, 4, and 6 when we started dating. So very young. But Colby was just the love of my life. And I know that sounds really weird, but he was and will always be the love of my life. he wanted to be a doctor. And the reason
Mhm.
he wanted to be a doctor is he wanted to be the last person that someone who was going into surgery would see, and because that's usually the anesthesiologist. And he met
Okay.
anesthesiologist before one of my brother Lance's surgeries here in Kansas City. And
Okay.
this gentleman just made the most amazing impression on him. So the whole time Colby was going through junior high and high school, he was dotting all his I's, crossing all his T's, to get into the UMKC School of Medicine, which is an accelerated 6-year program.
Okay.
He was accepted into that at 18. So that was just huge. I mean, he literally moved into his dorm before he even graduated high school. And I will always remember we took a big trip with my parents, and in between we had like 1 week, and I called my dad and I was like, this is what's going on. If you want to go with us, we'd love to have you. I mean, this was so spontaneous, but it was so
Sure.
wonderful. And I think my breast cancer diagnosis and journey is what made me start to appreciate,
Yeah.
even more than I did before, time with family.
Yeah.
And on a Friday, no, I'm sorry, on a Monday morning after Thanksgiving, in 2005, Colby was driving to school on Ward Parkway here in Kansas City. It's very, very well-known boulevard. It's very kind of a unsafe boulevard. There's been lots of
Hmm.
accidents on it. He hit a piece of black ice, and his car hit a tree and went into flames, and we lost Colby. And I was telling you that I speak with newly diagnosed breast cancer patients all the time, and I have for many, many
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
But since we lost Colby, I speak to just as many, if not more, parents who've lost their children,
Yeah.
and they're just searching for someone who has been in this deep, dark hole, basically,
Hmm.
um, who's doing okay. And that doesn't mean we don't have
Yeah.
sadness and we don't shed tears, but they
For
just
sure.
want someone who can say, your child's okay where they're at.
Yeah.
I truly believe that Colby is okay.
Hmm.
I believe he gives me strength every day. I believe that at times he shows me comedy when I need to laugh,
Yeah.
and not take things as seriously as I normally do. And
Hmm.
I just feel like he's just been a wonderful angel, not just to
Yeah.
myself, to so many people whose life he touched, in that short 19 years. So thanks for
Absolutely.
asking.
Yeah. I totally agree with you about, um, I mean, I would have given anything for people to know people who had gone before me with breast cancer, right? And I think that's why, um, a big driving force for me and for you in doing some of this. But I also I also feel like, and I don't, I've lost my dad. I haven't lost, a child has such a special place in your heart, but I just have, I feel it's so important too to keep them, to be able to talk about them. I mean, I remember hearing your story and hearing about Colby, but also like there's nothing I would want more than to have, my loved one be remembered, I think, you
Yes, oh,
know.
for sure. I'll show you just real fast, but
Yeah, absolutely.
picture of him that was on that last trip that we
Oh,
got to go on. And this is my third book.
yes.
And there's no reason to have a fourth because everything's still just kind of status quo. But
Hmm.
I feel like, these books were just, they weren't rocket science. They were just my story
Yes.
and kind of like my roadmap that I made
Yes,
for myself,
for
and
sure.
honoring him in the books as well has been you know, it served two purposes
Well,
because
and yeah, our lives aren't just one thing either, right? We have all of these different relationships and whatever careers and lives and people. So absolutely. So tell us what you showed up. This will be on YouTube, but it will. You also need to tell us the title of that book. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
Here, let's try again. Is that better? Okay.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Tell you what about the book?
Yeah, tell us about the book, please.
Okay. So, like I said, it's just it's myself and John and our journey, with the boys. I talk a little bit about pre-cancer, what our life was like, and then I talk about I have a timeline of all of my misdiagnosis, and then my proper diagnosis, and then all my clinical trials, all my treatments. I have a whole bunch of photos in it, before, during, since.
What's it called?
It is called Love to Live, Alive and Thriving.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Again,
and
for those of us that are just listening, let's throw that out there so people can look it up. It's available, I'm assuming, on Amazon and some of those.
It was.
Okay.
And then it just got to the point where I was still the one sending it out. And
Okay.
it got to be really hard to get things overnighted the way they needed to be to all their guidelines and all that stuff. So somebody just needs to reach out to me and really pay for shipping, because I just send it out.
You sound like me if I have copies at home. I don't have any copies of my book at home right now, so it's probably better. I mean, it is available, I think, on Amazon right now. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So can we just talk a little bit, so today it's been 20, how many years for you? 20, 24, 23, 22.
23 years. Next month in April, since my stage 4 diagnosis.
That's
April.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well,
are you still on treatment?
I am.
Good. Yeah.
I went
so tell us about that.
Yeah, I went from doing everything I already said to just going on Herceptin only. And May 1st this year will be my 23rd anniversary of being on Herceptin. And I went from doing a single dose every 7 days to a double dose every 14 days. And now for about the last 10 to 12 years, I've done a triple dose every 21 days. So I love going to treatment. I love getting ready and going down and visiting with the nurses. I love challenging my doctor every chance I get when I get to see him.
Yeah.
And I just, it keeps my journey real. The fact that I am still on treatment. And I'm grateful that I have wonderful insurance coverage, because those first few years, when you're paying all the co-pays and the deductibles and all that stuff, oh my gosh, I thought, if I don't die of stress from cancer, I'm going to die of stress from working with the insurance companies.
It's so true. And the financial toxicity of all of this is, oh my goodness, can be overwhelming.
Yes, it is. And that's why I send it to people.
Yeah.
I never did it to make money. It cost money, but it gave hope. And that's what I always told everyone, is if it just gives one person hope, if my story and what you and I are doing right here just give one person hope, then our time this afternoon is very well spent.
Great. Yeah. What's your scan schedule like? How often do you do that kind of stuff?
Well, this is the part about being stage 4, is you are treated with kid gloves. And I mean, I can have an itch and call my doctor and we'll do a scan. I don't have any itches. Very rarely. That's a joke. But I just, there have been times when I'm like, oh my gosh, something doesn't feel right. and
Mhm.
I'll get a hold of him and he'll say, you know, let's do it. We got to
Yeah.
do it. And but otherwise, it's once a year, and we
Yeah.
start doing them around the first or second week of December every year because
Okay.
when they come back negative, everything's fine. That is like my Christmas gift to myself every year.
Okay. That's an interesting philosophy because I generally am like, no December. Like, again, I just want to live in La La Land between the holidays. So, I choose a different time of year, but I like that, and there's definitely a little bit of confidence that goes with that one too, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And then I still have ongoing other scans too. I do, I mean, that the big one is the PET scan once a year,
hmm
but I still
yep.
have echocardiograms, and because I am still
Okay.
on treatment,
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
main concern is heart toxicity. And
Yep.
I will have to say that the last time I looked into my cardiologist's eyes, she said my heart was as happy and healthy as a teenage girl, and I'm going to be
Good
60
for
next
you.
month. So
Wow.
I'm going to take that.
That's awesome. That is great. So, wow. So cool. Um, Before we wrap things up, I have two questions. First, what do you often get asked? What do people ask you when they're asking you about breast cancer? What do they want to know?
Does it hurt? A
Does it
lot of
hurt?
people say, does it hurt? And
Okay.
I was always told that you couldn't feel cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my main host tumor did get to be the size of an egg. Of course, I was 34 double D, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was still invisible to the mammograms. And that's why you just have to keep pushing through when you do feel like there's something that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
My gut feeling at that point in time, 2 years after being told no, no, no,
Right.
consistently, um, my gut was telling me that something's not right. And
Yeah.
so I'm a huge fan of anytime you feel like something is not copacetic, stay on it
Yes.
because
Yeah.
no one is going to be more vigilant and no one needs to be more vigilant about your health care than you.
Yeah. For sure. I agree with that. Do you have any other advice for people besides being being an advocate for yourself, which is so necessary?
It is so necessary. Just look for the good in it because there's a reason. I mean, I really feel like there's reasons why, we do face obstacles in our lives, and it's not just breast cancer and it's not just losing Colby.
Mm-hmm.
Life is not meant to be perfect. We're
Yeah.
meant to have our highs and lows and our peaks and our valleys, and I just feel like they're all what make us who we are. And really,
Absolutely.
Heather, we're all just human. We're all
Yeah.
going to die. A friend of mine passed away 2 days ago, 60 years
Mm-hmm.
old of a heart attack. Um, you know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, just
Live the best that you can, right? I mean,
absolutely don't take a day for granted. Don't take a
hmm
day for granted.
yeah.
Be your best authentic self along the way, too.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's something that you definitely learn as you're faced with challenges, but also as you age, right? Like, I'm just going to be the best me I can be, right? And enjoy it.
Exactly, because it's when we start comparing ourselves or our journeys to others that
Yeah.
we're going to be disappointed, and it's like
Yeah.
even Facebook, those are our A-roll,
Right.
every
Exactly. I'm not going to put exactly my bad days on Facebook. That's what you have to think about, right? The highlights are
exactly.
on there.
Just live
Yeah.
your best, most amazing, authentic life. Don't ever look down on anybody else because you don't know what they're going through and slash
True.
have been through. And if you're going to look down, only look down when you're helping them up, because
Yeah.
that's the only time, because none of us are better than anyone else. It just, make the best of what you can every single day,
Yeah.
and always, always, always just find the good, because
I
there's a
love
lot.
it. I love it. Well, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me and with the podcast this afternoon. And really looking forward to being able to share your hope and positivity with everybody else. So thank you so much for coming. I'm going to hit stop and then we can.
Thank you, Heather.